styles, but I chose the technique called motivational interviewing. And in particular, a recent approach to motivational interviewing called culturally adapted motivational interviewing. So I'll cover both traditional motivational interviewing, but also how you culturally adapt that to different types of culture. So I'm going to begin sharing my PowerPoint slides now.
Yes, yes, doctor.
Yeah, they are visible, Professor.
Great.
Yeah,
We'll
you can
spend
make it full
between
screen.
We'll spend between 60 and 90 minutes talking, and I'll save plenty of time for questions at the end of the talk.
Sure, Professor.
So here's my contact information. I'm a clinical professor and I'm a clinical psychologist with Arizona State University. I always welcome my colleagues to contact me. You can use my WhatsApp ID if you have any questions about the presentation today. I focused since 2010 on global research and consulting and workforce training. I began by doing work in China back in 2010, traveling there off and on for 8 years, training physicians, nurses, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers. Later, I expanded my work to Southeast Asia and Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia. During COVID in 2021, I started doing work in India with Cyber University, later Bangladesh. I just finished a consultation with the World Health Organization in Vietnam to write the first guidelines for psychological interventions for psychologists. That'll be published this year by the Ministry of Health as the official policy for psychologists in Vietnam. I've had a number of small research projects I've been funded on, but my main project in life is training social workers, other clinicians, psychologists on different approaches to healthcare. My expertise is integrated healthcare. How do we treat physical health and mental health together? If you have depression, but also type 2 diabetes and you're overweight, how do you address those problems together? And for your population, if you have children who have disabilities, they're going to have physical problems, psychological problems, emotional problems, maybe unhealthy lifestyle habits. So motivational interviewing is a way of talking to your patients and their families. It's a conversation, but it's designed to use your conversation and your questions to help increase the individual's motivation to make a commitment to change something in their life, to make a positive change. Many people are reluctant to change because of fear or stigma. So these techniques can help you to interview a person to increase their desire to make a change, to change how they cope with depression, to change how they cope with their disability in public, to change how they address stigma and discrimination. So it's an interview between you and the patient or their parents involving decision-making and treatment. It shifts decision-making from you telling the patient what to do to the patient having a desire to do things to help themselves. And it's focused on your skills of listening and asking questions rather than being directive and offering what to do only. It's been proven effective for decades now for many types of problems, mental health problems, health, physical problems, domestic violence, family relationships, eating disorders. You can go to the organization motivationalinterviewing.org and see more information. Now, first of all, motivational interviewing training is typically done over many hours, many sessions, typically 6, 8, 12 hours of training. So my goal today is to give you just an overview, a taste of motivational interviewing. If you have interest, you can certainly look into more information in India on this topic. But my topic today is focused on motivational interviewing, bias by the clinician, stigma and discrimination, and high-risk behaviors. Because with children with disabilities, we know that stigma and discrimination are very common. So I chose that focus for our presentation today. So culture is what matters to the patient. It's not just their ethnic or racial background. It's not just their socioeconomic background. What matters to them? What are their core beliefs? What are your patients' values? What kind of barriers do they face in life? And as you know, a child with disabilities, intellectual disabilities, faces many challenges and barriers in life. So their culture is how they define what's important in their life. We know that stigma and discrimination, especially for children with disabilities, are very common, and for those with mental health problems. And these individuals have information they don't share typically that's personally relevant and makes them vulnerable. Maybe they feel discrimination or stigma, but they're too ashamed to talk about it. We as clinicians are often not trained to bring these topics up. We're not comfortable talking about stigma or discrimination with our patients. And unfortunately, we know stigma and discrimination, if they aren't addressed, can lead to worse mental health, and they can lead to an increased unhealthy behaviors and poor habits to cope with stress. Maybe we're going to try to cope with stress by overeating unhealthy food and becoming obese. Maybe we're going to cope with stress by engaging in risky behaviors. So we know that stress often leads to unhealthy habits. As clinicians and as students learning psychology, we're at risk for having our own bias because of stigma. Research shows that many clinicians have false beliefs based on myths about stigma and discrimination, such as my patients are not motivated to make a change, they're resistant to change, my patients are dangerous. If I talk to my patient about stigma, it'll make the patient anxious. So these are all things that are not true. And we know if we practice cultural humility, meaning we are open to the patient's experience and culture, we accept their background, we can connect with the patient more fully and have their trust and cooperation. So with clinicians and students, we try to work on recognizing our bias. We all have bias from how we grew up, from our parents, our teachers, our family and friends, our community. And it's okay to have bias. That's part of being human. But to become aware of your bias, recognize those, accept those, and work on overcoming how bias may interfere with your connecting with patients is critical. So motivational interviewing, or MI, can help you, the clinician, learn to understand the patient more clearly, identify their inner values, evoke or pull from the patient their own inner motivation, help the patient to talk about their experiences of stigma and discrimination, which are very shameful and embarrassing to them, but important to talk about, and to help acknowledge the struggle they're facing in facing life with disabilities. So here's some ways to discuss stigma and discrimination with the patient. And the main thing is to ask questions that give them permission to talk to you about things that are difficult because of shame, stigma, and discrimination. And after they began to be comfortable talking about those things, you can ask how they cope with these feelings of discrimination, these shameful feelings. And again, oftentimes we cope with stress and unpleasant feelings by doing things that are unhealthy, whether it's overeating, watching too much television or too much screen time on social media, whether it's having alcohol, tobacco, other things that are unhealthy. These are often ways we escape from feelings of emotional discomfort. We want to help the patient make the link between discrimination and stigma and shame, emotional discomfort, and using unhealthy behaviors to cope with that stress, and help them to find more healthy ways to cope with the stress they experience. So your communication style is using motivational interviewing, especially culturally adapted motivational interviewing, help to accomplish these goals. This is the book I recommend. It was published recently, Motivational Interviewing Across Cultures. It's written by a psychologist, Christina Lee, who has experience in working with different cultures. And it really is a very useful book with many practical strategies that I've incorporated into my presentation today. So first of all, we know patients often distrust the medical system. So communicate that you take the patients very seriously. Be more self-aware of what the patient maybe is feeling but not sharing with you. And try to be a coach to encourage the patient to be very active in participating with you in your communication. And reflect back the own cultural issues in India of stigma and discrimination towards children who have intellectual disabilities. And not just with the children, but their parents and caregivers also. You want to empower the children and their parents to make healthy decisions, to explore information that's personally relevant and makes them vulnerable. If I feel stigma and discrimination, if I'm ashamed of my disability, I don't want to share the information. I feel bad about it, and I'll try to hide it from you. So we need to help them, encourage them to talk about how they respond to discrimination and stigma, whether it's from their peer, other children, whether it's from their other parents in the community, whether it's from school system, teachers, walking to the store, feeling like they're being looked on differently. Help them disclose and talk about these feelings they have. And if they have unhealthy behaviors they're engaging in to cope with these feelings, identify those also. Oh, I see when you feel ashamed, you like to escape by watching your social media screen and watching things to make you feel happier. So look at how we can help them identify unhealthy habits, but also use affirmations. Affirmations are when you feedback and talk to the patient about their own strengths in fighting these struggles and fighting stigma, and give them credit and acknowledge the strength they have to be strong and survive day by day in spite of facing their intellectual disabilities, in spite of facing stigma and discrimination from others, and help them create a plan that is focused on their strengths, not their disabilities. I'm going to go over the basic motivational interviewing skills. And again, I'm just going to give you an overview because a deep discussion would take many hours. There are 4 fundamental processes, things you do as a psychologist when you're talking to the patient and their families. First of all, you want to engage them by asking questions and listening. When you ask questions and listen and reflect back, it shows the patient and their family you really are interested, you're invested, you care about the relationship. That builds collaboration and trust. Focusing means you're asking questions that guide the patient to a discussion on the topic about what's important in that meeting. It could be about how they experience stigma, but it could be about their unhealthy habits that they use to deal with shameful emotions. It could be about their strengths, but you guide them with your questions and talk about the topic to help be most beneficial in the meeting. You use questions to evoke. Evoke means to draw out. The patient has many thoughts and feelings they often don't share. You will ask questions to bring out from the patient these thoughts and feelings, and there are often things that will help them feel more motivated and have more ideas for change. And last of all, you do planning. You build a bridge from what their current state is, what they're currently coping with, and try to give them new skills to build a bridge to have better coping skills, healthier coping skills moving forward. So engaging. Engaging means you connect with the patient to relate to them more clearly, or their parents. Empathy means you listen and reflect back to the patient what they tell you accurately. You want to really understand the patient's perspective without your bias interfering. It's a patient-centered communication style. Focusing means guiding the patient by your questions, identifying a problem you want to focus on. Oftentimes people are ambivalent. They want to work on a problem, but they're also afraid of working on the problem. And we can use techniques to help them be comfortable focusing on the problem, talking about a problem that might be uncomfortable for them, and identifying what the problem is and what their strengths are to cope with the problem. So motivational interviewing, you're using questions to help focus the conversation on these topics. I mentioned evoking, where you use questions to find out the patient's own ideas about the problem and what they want to do to change. We listen for change talk. Anytime a patient mentions any interest in making a change, well, I'm thinking about trying to eat healthier. Well, I'm thinking about trying to do my homework more often. I'm thinking about how I can better cope with being angry with my parents. If you find any interest in change, focus more on those thoughts the patient has about changing. You can use techniques like elicit, provide, elicit, where you ask questions to elicit information, you provide feedback, ask more questions to get more information, and you get deeper and deeper into the patient's own core values by your questions. And then planning. We all work on making treatment plans. A treatment plan is what actions will the patient take and their family, their parents or caregivers to make changes to improve their life. So the four core processes, things you do when you're using motivational interviewing, engage the patient with your questions, focus on the problem, their strength with affirmations, evoke more questions to get more detailed information, and then make a plan to use their strengths to cope with the problem at hand. There are three core skills in motivational interviewing: asking questions, listening to the answer, and reflecting back what the patient tells you to show you're carefully understanding them, and informing them of things they can do to cope with their problem. I won't be going over these skills in detail because our time is too short, but if you look for information on the internet, you can find information about these core motivational interviewing communication skills. I'll be talking about a technique called the OARS, O-A-R-S. That's an acronym that stands for asking open-ended questions, giving the patient affirmations, reflecting back to the patient what they're telling you, and summarizing. These are all motivational interviewing techniques that give you closer connection to the patient and give you more information about what motivates them deep down. I should mention these kind of techniques, even for a child with intellectual disabilities who may have some challenges with cognition, understanding, these approaches are also okay to use them, using, of course, their language, their level of understanding. So just because a child has intellectual disabilities does not mean you can't use these techniques. They're very applicable even for children with cognitive impairment, intellectual disabilities, learning disabilities, etc. Open-ended questions mean don't use questions that can be answered with one word, like yes or no. Are you feeling bad today? Yes or no? No, don't do that. Instead, ask questions that are open-ended, that require the patient or family to give you more information. What are you worried about today? What kind of things make you feel upset today? What are the challenges you face when you try to cope with your intellectual disability and your way of having difficulty on homework or thinking? How do you cope with your family and your friends' view of you? What are things you like and don't like about habits in your life, like watching too much screen time, eating too much unhealthy food? What's the cause of the problem? Affirmations are ways to reframe the patient's perspective from negative to a more positive mindset, because we all have things that reflect our weaknesses, things we want to try and improve in life. And oftentimes we focus on our weaknesses and our problems and feel worse about ourselves. But we all have internal strengths, things we're good at. Even children with intellectual disabilities have things that are strengths. Maybe they're good at numbers. Maybe they're good at solving certain kinds of problems. Maybe they're good at certain kind of physical skills or sports. We want to find things that are positive, that are a strength, and point them out to the child and their parents. If they feel like they're a failure, that their disabilities are causing them to be a failure in life, point out areas where they have strengths and have success. Even though you had disability, look how far you've got. I see you've been doing better work on trying to study harder. I see you're doing a great job on trying to be more clear in communicating with your parents and reducing your stress and anger. Point out things they're doing that are positive, that reflect their strengths. Those are affirmations, because oftentimes our patients, they lose sight of their strengths. And when you point that out, it makes them feel stronger and better because they realize they do have some strengths with your help of pointing them and asking them to talk about them. So affirmations are pointing out strengths and asking the patient to tell you more about their strengths. And these techniques work for the children you're talking to, as well as their parents and caregivers and teachers. Reflecting means you simply reflect back the information the patient has told you, and it shows you're listening, that you care, and that you really are connected with them. Just use your own words. So you're telling me you feel ashamed when you can't answer a question because you can't think of the answer because of your problems in thinking. You tell me that you get angry when you think your peers are teasing you because you haven't got the same kind of thinking capacity they have. You try to reflect back what the patient is telling you. And then summaries, as you talk to the patient over the course of a meeting, every now and then summarize what they've told you and what the next steps are. So you might say to the patient, well, thank you. You talked about how ashamed you feel about your peers making fun of you. We talked about your strengths, how you're so strong to be able to take that teasing and not erupt in anger, but to be humble and to be positive. And we're going to talk about how you can be more effective coping with your friends teasing you in the future. So you summarize point by point how the session is going on up to the point of the end of the session when you make a plan for the patient to do things between now and your next meeting. So give the patient time to make sure they are clear on all the steps. If they have questions, you can stop and then move to your plan for change. What do you expect the patient or family to do between this session and the next time you see them? So back to building motivation, find out what inspires the patient. What's important to them? What gives them strength and hope? Who do they admire in life and why? Give them examples of other children you've worked with who's overcome their shame or embarrassment or intellectual disabilities and been successful in spite of them. Everybody has some motivation in them. Oftentimes it's hidden, and you're supposed to use motivational interviewing to help dig deep, evoke from the patient what motivates them, and help motivate them to work on their problems rather than being ashamed of their problems and coping with them by avoiding them or being upset or using unhealthy habits to cope with feelings of stress and unhappiness. So this is all about your conversation with the patient. You're using questions to get more information and help the patient see within them their own strengths and motivation. That's the core of motivational interviewing. Now, ambivalence, we all have ambivalence, means you have two feelings at the same time. You want to do something, but you don't want to do something. For any of you who may have been smoking cigarettes, you want to stop smoking, but it also helps you deal with stress and stay alert. You want to take your medication, but you keep on forgetting. I want to lose weight, but I have no time to exercise. I'm too busy. I want to eat healthier, but I love the street food that's so deep fried and salty or sugar food. I love it. It makes me feel better. So ambivalence means you want to make a change, but you also don't want to. And that's very common in all of us, and it includes children who have intellectual disabilities. And this can lead to, uh, by avoiding things, we don't deal with them. We avoid them and we have no chance to find the deeper causes of our problems. And we have no way to address how to solve the problem if we don't look at the cause of the problem. So ambivalence is very common. And you as a therapist, as a psychologist, help the patient recognize ambivalence. And you can use these techniques, evocative questions, looking for change talk, summarizing, looking at the person's values. We often have values that are very positive deep down, but we live our life that's not aligned with our values. Maybe I value being healthy. Maybe I value living a life where I'm trying to improve my health. But I also like sweet foods or deep fried salty foods, and I'm getting unhealthy from eating too much and becoming overweight or obese. So my core values say one thing, my behaviors are another. So we have to help the patient connect to their core values and tap into those positive values that they often bury and don't pay attention to. Make them explicit so they are more driven by their core values and not by unhealthy ways of coping with stress and emotional discomfort. You want to develop a discrepancy. Have them begin to see, I want to change, I don't want to change. What are more reasons why I want to change? Help the patient to see what are the consequences of of the behavior they don't want to change. What are the negative things about that behavior? Why should they change? The more reasons a patient can find to change, the more likely they are to make a change. So here's an example for weight loss or addictive behavior. Um, you find out you want to make a change, but you're going to have McDonald's often. What do you think about that? You want to try and lose weight, but you're going to McDonald's. Tell me about that. You have the patient be more aware of discrepancy. They want to do something, but they don't do something, and try to have them more aware of the discrepancy. Because when you're ambivalent, you often avoid thinking about what you want to do to change. When you're aware of both reasons to change and reasons not to change, you can better make decisions. Here's an example of an exercise you can have the patients do. Have them think about the reasons to change, reasons not to change. What are good things about making a change? What are bad things about making a change? What are good things about staying the same? What are bad things about staying the same? You're having the patient become more aware of all the pros and cons, costs and benefits of making a change. And of course, you're trying to focus, evoke your questions using motivational interviewing to talk about why you should change. What are the good things about making a change? Increase those thoughts. I'm going to now go into the section on culturally adopted motivational interviewing. So we use engaging. That's the technique we use to engage the patient. And for culturally adopted MI, we want to do the following four things. Increase their self-awareness of what might be causing them shame or embarrassment. Be a coach to have them talk about these problems without being embarrassed in front of you. Always assess their readiness to talk about these things with you. And attend to their culture, what matters to them, what's important to them. Their culture might be their way of thinking, their friends, how their family treats them, their own deep beliefs about their intellectual disability and how it creates barriers in their life. You want to give the individual permission and encourage them, engage them to talk about these very difficult topics. You want to focus by using affirmations to point out the strengths the child has. Had the parents and teachers point out strengths they see in the child, because when the child hears about their strengths, they become more aware of those. That increases their self-confidence. That increases their sense of self-esteem. The more you bring up things they're good at and reinforce those, that increases motivation also. Find other motivation they might have hidden within them. Evoking. You want to, again, ask questions to have them accept, yes, I do have some disabilities that are barriers, but I also have some strengths. Identify both of these things. Use the ORs, open-ended questions, affirmations, reframing to generate patients telling you things they're good at. You want to go from giving affirmations that point out the patient's strengths to having them tell you what they're good at. They internalize and become more aware of their own strengths. That is motivational interviewing in action. The patient internalizes and begins to feel better because they recognize their own strengths in spite of any limitations they may have because of their disabilities. And again, these techniques are all equally important for the child's parents, caregivers, and teachers. They can learn these techniques also to better communicate and connect with the child. Planning, you want to explore what kind of personally relevant vulnerable information the patient may be hiding, things that they're ashamed of, embarrassed by, and don't want to talk about. Use affirmations to help them talk about these feelings. And as they talk about these feelings, they get more comfortable. They become more accepting of these feelings, and they can have better ability to cope with them rather than avoiding them by running away from them and using unhealthy habits to cope. You're giving them the skills to talk about their shame and embarrassment in a more positive way and show a connection between how these emotions of shame and embarrassment can lead to unhealthy coping, using screen time, using unhealthy food, alcohol to cope with problems, and find other pathways to cope that are healthier. So in summary, Motivational interviewing is a way of using techniques where your questions help the patient find more motivation within them, or the patient's parents or teachers. You use techniques, questions such as open-ended questions to engage the patient, evoking questions to pull out from the patient more questions and more thoughts about what motivates them. Use open-ended questions to find more details about their true values. And for culturally adapted motivational interviewing, you want to help them talk about things that make them feel embarrassed, ashamed, discriminated against. Give them permission to be open with these things and the emotions they experience, but also use affirmations to point out the strengths they have, the skills they have, the abilities they have, so they have more confidence in being able to cope with their intellectual disabilities and find strengths to get through their life day by day without feeling crushed by shame, discrimination. Give them the skills to cope with this. Give the parents and teachers skills to help the students find the same strengths within them. I'm going to stop sharing now. And I have time, of course, for questions. I covered lots of information, an introduction to motivation. I could spend hours talking about these topics. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd like to hear them now. I'm curious if you had any training on motivational interviewing already. It's a very commonly used technique globally. I know it's been used in India. So I will stop talking for a few moments and wait for questions. You can also either ask questions now verbally, or if you want, you can type questions in to the text box in chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ronald. It was a nice, brief session. Basically, this is to introduce you to this concept. In future, we are going to organize more such workshops in detail, because it is not possible to have, this entire topics to be covered in an hour or so. So this is, just an introduction to the topic, and soon in collaboration with, Arizona State University, we are going to have, a comprehensive workshop where you can be trained for a half day or a whole day in collaboration. So we request everyone to, be active on various programs so that you can also get updated. And we have senior professor, who is closely associated with us since past few years, contributing, training, a lot of professionals, especially clinical psychologists, counselors, social workers, and especially this topic is more related to, addiction, de-addiction, and, in psychiatric settings and all. So this will be very useful for those who are looking for mental health settings and also various other settings. So this is a very good opportunity, and we were very fortunate to learn about various aspects of training today related to this motivational interviewing, like sir has discussed about various the process, the motivational intervention spirit. What basically it is, a professor has very well articulated how the motivational interviewing take place, what are the theoretical concepts, especially that is client centered, and we are talking about humanistic psychology, especially that is uh, based on cognitive dissonance theory and self-determination theory, and how the change happens, different change models. We were talking, professor was talking about changes of stages of change model, basically how change is inculcated over period of time, and the process involved, like engaging, focusing, evoking, planning, and the kind of relational foundation MI is grounded, attitudinal principles like partnership, acceptance, and compassion, evocation, so many things. I know really the way our professor has put in a very short time, it is really mind blowing. But definitely we need more time, and in coming days definitely we'll take it up. And we see a lot of reactions coming up, and it is very well taken. So we can, if you have any queries, you can also type in chat box, and if you raise your hand, we will unmute you. First, we have, we'll take few brief comments from our chairman, sir, Professor Patan Umar Khan, sir, on this session, and then we will go on with the question and answers. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, Professor Ronald, this is a very, very wonderful session, and we really fortunate to have you and hear you, and really the way you have put all the information and very easy way to understand. As hats up to you, sir. And this behavioral communication is very much required. So for the human being to understand the other's stigma, there are so many people with broken hearted. They come to us. They don't wanted to disclose all the problem which they have. So that stigma makes them to put in still more problem. So they have to come out from the stigma, and then their communication will be so easy to the the psychologist or special educator, or maybe the doctor or whomever is there to on whom they have the trust to heal the problem. So there are so many problematic people comes to us. They particularly in India, they want to hide the problem. So that's the most problematic things. They are not much at a small at a younger age. The children should not be are not in the position to bring to our clinics just because of the stigma, and they don't want it to explore and express the problem properly. And by hiding themselves, the problem will be going to be more to the child. So very important issue you have taken up, sir. And as our Reddy was telling, so we will be definitely we will be making bigger platform where we want to have your services. We want to share your expertise in motivating the people and changing the behavioral pattern. So that's more important. One has to come out with their stigma problem. So then only they can get proper help from the therapist. That is what I understood. Thank you very much. And Rabinder, is really very nice to have Professor Ronald today, and hope we will be continuing his expertise with our participants in the future too. That is what I expect. Thank you very much.
Dr. Khan, thank you. Dr. Ravinda, thank you for your comments also. And I'm happy that this was clear because motivational interviewing is such a big, big topic. There are many books. I want to just give the key ideas in this short talk today. I'd like to know, is motivational interviewing already taught in your curriculum, or is that something new to you?
Oh, and in fact, yeah, this it's not so new. There's of course we too have the problem, facing the problem day to day. But some of the tips which you have given are very effective tips that could be adopted by the specialist, like a psychologist or special educators, so that they can intervention could be possible. And one should have the patience to listen when the client is expressing there. And we should be empathetically, we should approach, our approach should be empathetically, we should not show the sympathy. So sympathy again creates a lot of problem. It's a really excellent light, light you have thrown on the subject. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Professor. Like earlier, we also had with West Western University from USA. we had similar project on motivational interviewing. So there also we have undertook a research project earlier, a few years back. So we also want to take up few research projects, this year under the guidance of our, abled professor, chairman sir. We are actively looking for more such collaborations in coming days. So we will have active, collaborations, and we'll also take up research projects where, we can take it forward, the concepts, and we have clinical aspects of various practices, that evidence-based practices especially. So we look forward to collaborate, and though this concept is not new, but I think we need to explore more in terms of research. So in that way, our chairman sir is very much looking forward for collaboration and active participation. So definitely, I think this will take, because our organization under the leadership of Chairman Sir has taken a good leap since, especially in Telugu states, we have been able to leave a mark, especially with the efforts since 4 decades our chairman has put forward. So definitely, and this year we have a program, especially, clinical psychology program at bachelor's level. So that is again a new milestone that has been set in the Telugu states, especially in Telangana. So we will also look forward to take up research work also. That should be a kind of research work that should be a first of its kind in Telangana. So that is what we are actively looking forward. And definitely, I know since past few years we are working together. And definitely, I think we can take our organization also together and start some research work also along with the
Thank you.
Organization. That is what our chairman sir wants to convey. So it's really wonderful the way you presented. So before we take up question and answers, I would request everyone to switch on your video. We'll take a group photo. Then we can continue with the question and answers. Participants, I request everyone to switch on your videos.
It's good to see you all. Good evening.
Yeah. It will be memorable for all of us, to have a photograph, and we'll also document. Request everyone quickly, just for 1 minute. Once we take the screenshot, you can switch off. Very good. I think few others also need to switch on their cameras. And at the end, we will also share the attendance form in the Zoom itself. We request everyone to fill the form so that we can also prepare certificates to each and every one of you. Once the question and answer session is over, we'll be sharing you. So we have Jyotsna Indira. Yeah, thank you everyone. You can continue to be, on video mode, or you can switch off as per your convenience. Thank you everyone. So we have Jyotsna Indira.
Anusri wants to say something.
Yes, sir. I want to say. I want to talk for 2 minutes, sir.
Please.
First, I would like to 1 minute, sir. So first, I would like to thank Ronald sir for having the workshop is very interesting and informative. And my special thanks to Ravindra sir. I've attended many more workshops which I've gained more knowledge. Even I got more experience. And every time we are attending the workshop, we are getting extra and advanced type of way of handling patients and the technique. We are getting new messages. We are getting it. And I would like to thank Ronald sir, the professor. Even we know there's a patient-centered or client-centered, the sources, the way he narrated things, which even a layman also easily can understand. The simple way is everything, you put it in a nutshell. So I'm very much thankful to him for giving me as an opportunity to participate in the workshop. And once again, thanks, members of this institution. And Ravinder sir, my special thanks to you, sir.
Thank you for the kind words. Thank you. I'm grateful.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Jyotsna ma'am, for your kind words. It's all efforts of our chairman, sir. We are able to, as a team, he is very supportive. And in coming days, this year, we are celebrating 40 years. We will have lots of programs entire year with the leadership of our chairman, sir. We will have lot of opportunities. We will see as many programs as possible. And we will we'll have more programs and more learning opportunities together. Yeah, Chairman, sir.
Let me cover a couple of the questions in chat.
Yeah.
The first question was, how do I use the OARS technique without sounding artificial? And the answer is, when you first start practicing a new skill, it is a bit artificial, right? When I first learned MI, I would write down different approaches and I tape it on my desk while I was seeing patients. I'd practice using that. So at first, of course, you learn a new skill like riding a bicycle. It's difficult at first. After time, it becomes natural. So for example, if you have depression, I began by greeting you, asking about your life, the weather, and maybe I'd say, tell me about, you're feeling sad or feeling depressed, I understand. Tell me some more about that. I hear that information, I reflect it back. Tell me about what kind of things make you feel most depressed. When do you feel the worst? Tell me when your depression is not that bad. Tell me about how you cope with depression. These are all natural questions and how I come across with my own care and concern, but they're asking questions that are open-ended, and I get more information. So it becomes very natural with practice. The second question was for ambivalence. How do you talk about ambivalence when the person is very emotional and not being logical? And of course, we're human beings. We are emotional. We often don't think with our head, we think with our heart, and that can be difficult. So if a person is very upset, it's often because when they're ambivalent, uh, they want to avoid talking about things that make them feel bad. That's natural. We all want to avoid feeling anxious, worried, mad, depressed. But by using techniques, you can help the patient accept more of these emotions, look at them objectively. Um, MI is used not by itself with other techniques also. You can use relaxation skills. I use mindfulness meditation, which means you learn how to practice mindful meditation, become more aware of your emotions that cause you to feel reactive and upset, angry, depressed. And as you become more skilled, you can then be more aware of these emotions without acting out on them. So you might need to have, before you can discuss ambivalence, you might need to first on accepting these negative feelings and talking about them as a first step. Because it's not unusual to be upset when someone talks about something that's very personal with you. So my answer is for ambivalence, and the person is very emotional, give them time to calm down with relaxation, then help them to learn more about what is making them feel so upset, so bad, and have them bring that out. And that usually leads to a more calm discussion, then go into a discussion of ambivalence, why to change, why not to change. So let me stop there. I think there are some more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We have Anushri Rath. Anushri, you can go ahead.
Yes, sir. Firstly, I would like to thank Dr. Donald for such an insightful session and for simplifying the concepts so greatly for us. So, I wanted to ask, in line with the concept of ambivalence, suppose we face a lot of resistance, especially in terms of more difficult concerns like long term substance abuse issues. Is there a case for transference that might occur in between the patient and the therapist, and how to deal with that transference, especially if it's negative? Thank you, sir.
Well, substance abuse and dependence, whether it's alcohol, drugs, um, is a very common problem. And it's a common way people use to cope with stress in their life. So I don't practice psychodynamic work. I've been trained in that, and I understand transference and countertransference. I would reframe that in a motivational interviewing way as the patient's going to have very emotional, negative reactions talking about some of these topics. And they might, because you bring it up, they might transfer and blame you for the problem, right? And take out their feelings on you rather than looking inward and acknowledging their own feelings. And in that case, certainly always avoid arguing with the patient. Never try to use logic or argue back with them because that's not going to be successful. They'll get more resistant, more dug in. Instead, uh, just ask more questions to understand what they're experiencing and try and peel away the layers of the onion to see more deeply what's making them feel so upset and maybe have transference and countertransference issues with you. So open-ended questions, as in psychoanalysis, right? You're using open-ended questions to find out deeper information and look for the core values the person has that they really believe in but have maybe lost sight of, and how substances are a way to replace dealing with these unhappy feelings, unhappy emotions that is good in the short term. I feel good after having alcohol or a drug, but in the long term, it causes more problems. And it's a long process to discuss that over time. It's not going to happen in one meeting, right? It takes multiple meetings for a patient with chronic substance abuse to be able to recognize how substances are a way of coping with stress, to recognize they have internal skills and strengths you can evoke with affirmations they can use to cope more effectively, maybe using relaxation, mindfulness, cognitive behavioral therapy, other techniques to manage their stress rather than using substances to manage their stress. So that's a long answer to your question. I hope it was helpful.
Thank you so much, sir, for your answer. I'm pretty sure it was like a good starting point that we can build on further. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anushree. Anyone? We have Dr. Mallikarjun. Dr. Mallikarjun.
Good evening, sir. It is a nice session, and Donald has a very spoke well and very motivational and effective. Sir, I have one question. I think it is a very related or not. Why the motivation become a problem today?
Why is motivation a problem today?
Yeah, young
That's the
generation,
question.
young generation, they don't know the concept of motivation, and motivating the young generation, students, people become a very big problem today.
Well, first of all, motivation has always been a problem, probably throughout history, is my guess. But certainly in modern society, there are many things that could uh, exacerbate, make worse a lack of motivation. And certainly in my thinking, especially for children and young adults, things like the negative impact of smartphones and screen time and social media can all be things that uh, take away from motivation, because what do those devices do? They take you to some immediate relief that's not substantive, not deep. It doesn't replace real communication with the person, real problem solving about what bothers you. It's escapism, right? And nothing wrong. I use social media. I use smartphone. I like to watch television, but I also take a break from that and I use my brain and think without being driven by social media only. And for children and youth who are constantly looking for a dopamine rush by being exposed to social media images, by talking to their friends online only, that becomes a way to replace a deeper thinking and looking inward, including at your motivation. So I think those are all barriers and increasingly recognized. There's been recent research showing with the advent of smartphones, with the advent of children using more social media, you're seeing things like depression, anxiety, suicide ideation all increasing. And there's many doctors feel that social media is leading to a crisis in our youth. We're having their brains rewired in a way that they have difficulty solving problems in real life. So that's one answer, that there are many reasons. That's, I think, a very current reason for young adults. Well, what do you think? What are your thoughts about why motivation is more difficult now?
Yes, yes, correct, sir. Okay, thank you.
We also have in society now, maybe there are more reasons to feel stress, right? We have global conflict. We have increasing air pollution globally. We have social media, people be getting angry back and forth with each other, more divides politically and culturally. So there are many things happening in life that cause stress on top of the stress we experience as individuals. So I think there are many reasons why motivation is more difficult now.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sir,
Good question.
Dr. Ravinder, sir, I have one doubt.
Yes, sir.
Ravinder, sir. Sir,
Yes, sir.
the way the seminars are conducted, conferences are conducted, it is very difficult, sir. The first you ask registration, then after the registration, before starting, you will ask attendance, and then attendance links are not available hours together. Then after the seminar, when the attendance link is available, by that time it will miss. Last two seminars I've attended, but I didn't get my certificates because of not marking attendance.
See,
And
sir,
before
yeah.
marked attendance also, but I
Mm.
didn't get certificate. And moreover, then you have clearly written not to disturb, asking uh, regarding certificate and all. So I
All these, this is a precious, valuable time, and you are a learned person, so this can be, talked offline. See, one thing is clear: we want to ensure that whoever is attending, we have a criteria: 75%. Whoever is attending, genuinely attending, we are providing them certificate. See, we have 1,100 registrations, and you can see how many are attending now. So
yes,
similarly, we will have more registrations. But how many of them are actively attending? And based on them only, we can issue certificates. Without participation, we cannot issue certificates. So that's why registration can be done by anyone. But in Zoom, you have to mark your attendance. Then only we can, compare the registration as well as the Zoom attendance, and then we can issue the certificates. That is very clear.
okay, agreed, sir. But that attendance link should be available before or after, sir. Because complete seminar, we keep on looking the link. Where is
No,
the
no,
link?
no. Actually, that's what, the link is active, but today it has been closed. But generally, the form which is there, it is not a Google form. See, we will give you instructions. Don't, kindly wait. We will give the registration form also. That is attendance form. It was initially given, but what happens, while presentations are happening, there can be a mistake that it has been closed accidentally. But we are aware of all those things. And when, we will be addressing all those things. See, we cannot
Dr.
waste our one.
Ravinder, we
Yes.
will discuss this thing offline afterwards.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now somebody is
Waiting for
wanted to,
this.
yeah. So Imtaj, Mr. Imtaj.
Mute, unmute, please.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Imtiaz.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Dr. Imtiaz from Andhra Pradesh. I just have a query with Mr. Ronald regarding nowadays the young generation also become very enthusiastically focusing on online sessions instead of offline sessions. So how do we address this situation? It become a laziness or something is in regards to they are not ready to go to the offline colleges and all. This online is become a very habitual right now. How would we make a transformation from online to offline? How it is possible? That is the major thing now we are our adolescent society is facing. Is how do we motivate that particular adolescents to the activeness instead of this laziness? That's all.
So let me make sure I'm clear on your question. Do you mean for a psychotherapy session, online versus in person? Or do you mean in general, how do you motivate a person to be online less? I'm not quite sure your question focus. Can you tell me more?
Okay. Thank you so much. And the major
I
thing is
didn't.
this.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
please, please,
clear
please.
about can you repeat your question so I'm more clear before I try to answer? I wasn't
Can
quite
you be
sure.
No, no,
more specific, Imtiaz sir?
yeah. What happened? The online is become a very habitual to the adolescent and younger generation instead of attending offline classes. That is a major thing. They are not ready to go to the college to spend the time in the college. Instead of that, they are happily enjoying with the smartphone, laptop, and other things. They are ready to spend the time on these gadgets, not for in the classrooms. This kind of behavior is very in danger. So, how to bring out that particular age people from that tendency? That is my question.
I understand now. Thank you. So first of all, there's a movement in the United States, I'm not sure about India, to have schools and universities restrict the use of cell phones and laptop computers in lectures because students are addicted and they cannot resist. While you're talking and trying to lecture and discuss information, they're looking at shopping on Amazon or looking at Meta funny videos. So it's addictive. It's an addiction, and you can do things physically to try and reduce that. But secondly, you have to have the students aware of the negative impact of using social media interfering with their learning. And many young people, they realize social media is negative. They understand it's taking over their life too much and they want help on changing that. And you can use motivational interviewing to work with them, individuals, even in groups, about how to cope with the strong pull of social media and screens. How do you cope with that? How do you find ways to use that at times, not use it constantly? So it's a very difficult problem. I don't want to make it sound easy, but certainly just restricting the devices is one way, especially for young children. Increasingly, schools in USA, you can't have smartphones in the classroom. It's restricted. So I think those are good ideas because it's so addictive, the kids can't resist. Did I answer your
And more,
question?
yeah. And moreover, one more small question, if the panel is allowed to me. So
Yes, sir.
what
Please go ahead.
happened? They in their mindset, what's the turned into this social media like Instagram, then Facebook, YouTube. It's become one more financial resources they thought, so that they are spending more time in that. So we can say that that is not only the source of income. That type of things we have to how to address that. Bring out them from that tendency. They thought that only if I get more likes, if I get more following, I'll get money from YouTube. If I get more likes from the Instagram, I'll get the money, financial assistance from them. So these are the become so addictive. Addictiveness is going to be enhanced more. It's not enhanced; it's so hiked more among the children. How do we get out of them?
Well, again, the great majority of children don't make money. They don't become social media influencers. Very few achieve that. Maybe they all see it. Oh, this person made $1 million. I want to do that. But most, 99.9% do not achieve that, number one. So it's a false belief. And again, how to deal with that. If I had an easy answer to how to deal with the social media screen time problem in the world, I'd be a millionaire. But it's not an easy answer. It requires patience, it requires communication, having the young person begin to think about the negative impact of social media on their life in terms of relationships, learning, their career, their profession. And this is not a quick process. It takes discussion over time. I think it'd be great to have groups formed in school for youth to talk about this problem because they know it's a problem. They know they're using too much in many cases, but they can't stop because it's an addictive dopamine rush they get from looking at their screens nonstop. It's a very exciting, enticing. And the people that, produce social media, they understand they're using algorithms to help have it become more addicted to the screen time. So this is a huge problem we're facing in society, and it requires, I think, a collective effort where we as psychologists, educators, band together with some common approach to raise awareness of this problem and help the young people overcome their ambivalence about wanting to use screen time too much and find other ways to use their mind through mindfulness, through reading, through talking to each other in person, through listening to their professor in the class rather than looking at their social media. But it's not easy. It's a global problem we're all facing as as professionals, we need to help the youth with?
In India, government is also taking some measures to stop the, giving this type of some social medias available to the young age children. So that is the government of India has introduced. Probably that will stop it in the future.
Yes, sir. Now we have monitoring apps also in mobiles, screen usage and app usage. These are, continuously when even YouTube recently, YouTube and other social media platforms like Instagram, Facebook, they have put restrictions on, number of views a consumer can view, if, especially children, they have brought up new restrictions. You cannot go on and on. See, once the limit is set, then automatically you will not be able to use the app, and you have to wait for some time based on age restrictions. So we need to bring such type of initiatives. Basically, what we see is gamification of education. Trying to make more dynamic content and using edutainment models, using digital content, audiovisual content, and change in pedagogy, how we teach the content. And we have different, we have virtual reality, augmented reality, where we can teach, students, those who are very much into digital content. So we need to adapt an innovative, creative technologies to teach our students, so that they instead of going for mobiles and other things, they will also focus in classrooms. So it's the teacher's best decision, which kind of technology they are going to use for their students, adapting to their classrooms. So that is what a little contribution from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree.
So, classroom situation should be made in such a way so that the students should be attracted to come and sit in the classroom. That
Yes.
it should not be feel bored for them.
Yes.
So once, definitely it will be improved.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
A comment from Vani in the chat. Number one, that environmental factors like traffic can affect the students' interest in online learning rather than in person. And certainly online learning is proven as effective as in person. It's the wave of the future. It is more convenient. In my doctoral degree program I teach in, the students are online across the country, across the world. So I prefer in person if I had a choice, but oftentimes it's not the most realistic and feasible approach to have the broadest impact. So if you have to use online learning, learn techniques to use online learning effectively, online learning. Secondly, Vani mentioned that brainstorming activities, having the youth get together in groups and talk and think, that's a good antidote to screen time. I like that idea. And then younger generation looking for money from social media. I would ask your students, how many are making money? Maybe a few pennies, right? Most people are not making money. They're spending time trying to make money or looking at other people making money, and they're not making any money. So help them realize the goal to make money is good. Is that going to be accomplished by social media? In almost all cases, the answer is no, and not real money to live on. So helping to raise awareness of these kind of things is one way to address these problems. So thank you for your comments in the chat, Vani.
Thank you, Professor. There is one query. How can we use motivational interviewing through better cultural nuances to deal with resistance to behavioral change? And does positive psychology play essential part in it? By Preeti Chauhan.
Well, motivational interviewing is a psychological intervention. It was developed by psychologists, and it's a way of using asking questions to change motivation. So I think my whole talk is about using this technique to help build motivation. And again, to summarize, the core is we have motivation within us. It's often not conscious, or it's buried, or we're avoiding, we're focused on our problems too much. And by helping the individual to see, look at their problem without reacting to it emotionally, and to begin to find their strengths to cope with problems, that can build motivation. But again, as Dr. Ravindra mentioned, motivational interviewing takes many hours of learning to become proficient. This is just a introduction, tip of the iceberg.
Yes. Thank you, Professor. We have Xavier. Xavier?
Oh, yes, sir. Good evening, Sir Ronald.
Hi,
It was
Xavier.
a great session having with you. So my question is, like, why are the young generation driven to have a suicidal thoughts, anxiety? What is driving them to do those things?
Well, there's no one answer to that question. Certainly, depression and suicidal ideation is increasing among young people globally. And what's the cause of that? I think there are multiple causes. Certainly, uh, one theory that's with research behind it is that the screen time is a problem. That when you grow up spending your time looking at screens for entertaining yourself, what do you miss out on? Our generation who grew up without social media and screen time, we learned to, in person, interact with our peers, our friends, our parents to solve problems, to figure out how to solve emotional problems. We were forced to deal with problems because we were with people in person. When you replace that with screen time where you're not learning problem solving, interpersonal skills, you're missing out on a whole part of growing up and having skills. And when you get older, suddenly you don't have the skills to cope with life and you can become depressed. Secondly, we know for young people today, because of just the global economy, because of pollution, because of increased competition for jobs, corporatization, it's more difficult for young people to make a living. So it's a real challenge they're facing. In USA, it used to be you want your children to make more money, do better than you as a parent. That's difficult now because the jobs are paying less and they're fewer. That may be a global problem. You have the stress we're experiencing from pollution, from too much traffic, from global conflict, from politics, from social media causing divides. You're getting angry at each other. These are all things that fuel unhappiness and fuel depression. So the answer to your question, there are many factors we can think about that cause increased depression and suicidal ideation. And it always requires an individual focus. With that youth, what factors are causing them to feel so depressed? And that requires one-to-one interviewing, motivational interviewing techniques can be used, psychological assessment can be used to find out for each individual of all these factors, which ones are most impacting them.
So,
Thank you.
sir, there's a question, a small question joined to that. How can we reduce the thoughts like depression, like that?
How can we do what to those thoughts? How can we overcome them?
Yes, sir. How can we overcome those thoughts?
Well, that's the core of any psychotherapy, right? I'm not an advocate of any single model, but psychoanalysis, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, acceptance, ACT, acceptance commitment therapy, mindfulness-based interventions can all be used to help us better cope with emotions and problems in life. So whatever psychological intervention you think is best for your personality, whether it's psychoanalysis or cognitive behavioral therapy, they're all evidence-based. They all work. So I encourage you to become more skilled and proficient at models of psychotherapy and use those to help patients overcome depression and suicidal ideation.
Thank you, sir. It was a great time with you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Xavier.
you, Xavier. Dr. Mihir? Dr. Mihir Pandya? Okay. Apurva Krishnamurthy?
Hello. My question is, how do I use motivational interviewing for somebody who is a victim of bullying, a child who's a victim of bullying and is refusing to go back to school? So the school has been changed. So, but I would like to, see a change in the child with respect to going to the school. There's no motivation to go back to school. So, how would I use it in that case?
Hmm. Well, again, bullying is a good example of how to use culturally adapted motivation for interviewing. When you're bullied, you have deep feelings of shame, unhappiness, you are not worthy. And it's hard to talk about those feelings. So, step one be to help the youth to begin to talk about his or her response to being bullied. How do they feel? What do they think about that? It's going to be very negative. And it's natural. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel shamed, embarrassed, humiliated. I don't want to go to school and experience those emotions, number one. So acknowledging that and talking about that with MI would be the first step. Next, you would look at, well, what things do you like about school? If you weren't being bullied, what do you like about school? I like learning. I like being with my friends. I like my teachers. Begin finding reasons they want to go back to school. And back to developing discrepancy, um, give the child the ability to talk about ways to cope with bullying. Give them coping skills, whether it's cognitive behavioral therapy, behavioral techniques, ways to become better at handling the very common bullying that occurs so they can be more effective in coping with it. That combination, expressing how bad they feel about being bullied, that they're often hiding, finding out what's good about school, the strength, the values they have to learn more, to be with their friends, and then helping them develop skills to cope with bullying. Those three steps to me are the most important ones to deal with a return to school for bullying. Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Mihir Pandya. Okay, Arkut Sardi.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Ronald. Hi,
Hey,
Lavender.
Arcot.
Thank you for providing me a chance to speak. My question today is on LLMs and AI models, learning MIs. So the MI which you're introducing, which has been there for a long time, and my question is basically, would it be that the AI models and the LLMs use these same models, as I've seen pretty much a lot of times apps asking well-being questions like in the form of MI? So I just want to get some more light on that. Thank you so much, Ronald, because I'm finding a lot of apps, also people training these models for the futuristic robotics to learn these and provide introspection. Thank you.
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence and large language learning models are a good thing and a bad thing. So for MI, I am sure you could use ChatGPT or a similar AI chat platform to use MI. You could begin talking to ChatGPT and saying, um, I feel like I'm being bullied and I don't want to go back to school because I feel too bad going back. What can I do? And you could feed AI information about MI techniques, and it would be able to use them with the individual. Now, I would not use that only because we know AI can also make errors and hallucinate and give it misinformation. But in my experience, I try using MI to test it for these kind of questions. I find it pretty good, often very accurate. So I would use that with a therapist helping, but certainly you could use AI to practice MI if that's your question. That's doable. Now, we also know, of course, AI has many, like screen time, many adverse effects. Many young people begin to see AI as their only friend and to treat it as a friend or even a lover, right? That happens nowadays. So there are negative sides to AI we also must address, but like anything else, like social media, it can be used in a positive way if it's used with intention and to help people. So I think AI has great potential to be an assistant to psychologists and therapists if it's used carefully and with guidance. Did I answer your question?
Yes, it pretty much did.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. You have a wonderful day.
I use AI, I use ChatGPT and Gemini often in my work to help address problems and get information. But I had a friend tell me we apply artificial intelligence, then we apply human intelligence, meaning if you get information from ChatGPT or whatever AI platform you're using, it can be very helpful at giving you much information, synthesizing things, but you then must use your mind to evaluate it critically, analyze it, and put it together to make a writing or a statement that reflects who you are as a person and your way of thinking, not just AI. So you use AI as a tool, but it can't replace your work and your thinking. You must use both artificial intelligence and your own human intelligence.
Thank you, Professor. We have Sudha.
So good evening, sir. Thank you for the most insightful session. So my question is, no, I have a client who has physical abuse and sexual abuse, and no, how would I apply motivational interviewing for such clients? Thank you.
Well, again, any kind of traumatic event, including physical and sexual abuse, as you know, causes deep shame, embarrassment, humiliation, as well as anxiety, depression. And a first step would be using motivational interviewing just to um, elicit from the patient these terrible feelings that they maybe don't want to share with anybody because they're so painful. And a first step is having them be able to trust you and share with you how terrible they feel and what they've experienced or are experiencing still. That's a prerequisite. Until they're comfortable talking to you about these terrible emotions, you can't make progress. And then using affirmations to find what strengths the individual still has. In spite of going through this terrible abuse, what are the strengths they have? How are they surviving and not falling apart and committing suicide? What are they doing to cope day by day? They are doing something positive to cope and leading that to building on more effective coping strategies. And of course, ideally removing the person from the abusive environment. That's ideal. It isn't always possible, I know. But in the United States, we have ways to help provide shelter and places people to escape the abuser. If that's not possible, it's very difficult to solve the problem. If you can't give a person coping skills, they're going back to their home where their parent or sibling or others are abusing them physically or sexually. So a very difficult problem, very common problem, unfortunately. And motivational can be a tool, but it's not the only answer. It requires other psychological skills like trauma-based psychotherapy to be used also. Trauma-informed therapy must also be used. MI is just one technique. It can be used with psychological theories, other approaches. You can use MI plus psychoanalysis, MI plus CBT, MI plus trauma-informed psychotherapy. So it can be mixed and matched with other approaches. It's not a standalone technique. It's more of one to interweave with your current therapy approaches.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. We have Geeta.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I live in Canada. Good morning, Dr. O'Donnell, for presenting such an insightful session. Very, very educative
Hi, Geeta.
indeed.
Thank you. Thank you,
Hi,
Geeta.
good morning, Doctor. I wanted to know, I work with immigrants who are basically looking for work. There are a lot of challenges in the Canadian employment market. I wanted to know what are some of the strategies that I can apply in relation to behavioral interviewing when I'm working with job seekers from an employment counseling perspective?
Well, again, I think the book I mentioned earlier, and I will put that in the hang on a second, I'll put it in the chat. I highly recommend reading that book by Christina Lee, Motivational Interviewing Across Cultures, because it talks about immigrant experience. Immigrants often face deep discrimination and stigma in their wherever country they're in. And that becomes very difficult, emotionally upsetting them, but they don't want to talk about it. It's shameful. So what do you do when you have a emotion that makes you feel terrible? You try to escape that feeling. And that could be, again, through alcohol, drugs, tobacco, overeating, foods that are sweet and salty and unhealthy, having coffee with lots of or tea with lots of sugar in it, right? We find ways to escape feeling bad through unhealthy behaviors. And motivational interviewing can help the individual who's an immigrant looking for a job to first of all recognize uh, their experience of discrimination. Have them talk about how they experience discrimination and stigma as they try to look for jobs and do job hunting interviewing. Number one, have them express that to you. Number two, try to work with them to identify their own strengths, the skills they have, and to be able to go to interviews and be able to show their best side, show their strengths without reacting emotionally if they feel they're being stigmatized or discriminated against. It's very challenging, but I think that population, immigrants, is really very important to offer this kind of approach. And I really encourage you to buy that book or get it from the library because it's a great book talking about using these techniques in more detail to help immigrants who feel stigma and discrimination recognize that, accept it, and then move on to find strengths to cope with that discrimination in their life. I hope that's helpful for an answer.
Oh, certainly. Thank you so much, Dr. O'Donnell.
Thank you, Geetha.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geeta. I think, we are also getting late and Professor also has taken so much time. So before, I hand over session for the remarks. So we will take one question from Sabu Isa. Do the result of motivational interview take permanent change in client's behavior? Can you explain the stages of change happening in client that leads to permanent change?
Well, Dr. Ravindra mentioned earlier the stages of change, the trans-theoretical model, where people will go through different stages of motivation to address problems in their life. Early on, they have no interest in making a change. Later on, I'm thinking about making a change. I'm not sure I'll make a change. Then they finally said, I'm going to make a change. They commit to it and they take action. And over time, that can be permanent as they become more skillful at recognizing motivation. But also, we know in life, things happen in life over time. Things change, and we face crises in life. We might face a job crisis, a financial crisis, a relationship crisis, a health crisis, right? So things happen to us, and when that happens and we feel increased stress, we can be thrown off track and lose motivation. It requires using motivation again for the new problem, motivational interviewing again for the new problem to cope with it. So it can be permanent, but we know in life nothing is permanent, right? Life is impermanence. And as we face adversity, it may require using motivational interviewing techniques again for the new event in our life to address it. So it can be permanent for some problems, but because life is impermanent, we may come back to and use it again when needed over time when things change.
Yeah, thank you, Professor. This is a very big topic, though it looks very simple. And, it depends on different cases and circumstances, situations, how they are influencing individual. It's a very, though it looks simple, and it is simple also, and it is as well as complex also. So it needs a lot of practice and, guidance, supervision to learn this, So that's why we will have, future sessions, maybe 2-3, a full day workshop or half day workshop. We'll have, a comprehensive workshop where we can learn and we can invite. Professor also keeps visiting India. So whenever he's coming to India, we'll also have offline workshops also. So we can, interact with each other personally and also, have the joy of learning in person, as well as we'll also have online learnings also, because we have been associated since quite long, and there is a long way for learning process. So we appreciate everyone. You have been very proactive in asking queries and various suggestions, and also I see a lot of queries are still there, but we have to respect our time limitations.
Thank you.
And definitely we'll go forward. And I especially on record would like to thank our chairman sir, Professor Umar Khan sir, for giving this opportunity to organize this international workshop. And especially, I would like to thank Professor Ronald O'Donnell. He's a very good friend of us, and he's very active whenever we put a proposal. He actively accepts us without any hesitation, and he is very kind enough. And we also thank the College of Health Sciences, Arizona State University, for their kind acceptance and being part of this international workshop, and for their collaboration. And I would also like to thank Dr. Sri Krishna, Head Department of Clinical Psychology, Helen Keller Institute, and also my colleague, Mr. Ramesh, and also other faculty members, students, and everyone, participants, especially lovely participants. You all, proactively participated, and you made this wonderful session all together. So we will be sharing, the form once the concluding remarks from our chairman, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Ravinda. Thank you very much.
So
Dr.
we are
Khan, thank
at
you
the
also.
end of the program, and there are more than 170 people attended. So I really appreciate all the people for patiently attending the program. And then we should be thankful to our today's guest, Dr. Ronald. He has patiently addressed all the queries. So thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So we will have the same similar sessions in the future too. So thank you very much. So we will end up here.
Well, Dr. Khan and Dr. Ravindra and all of you, I'll say in closing, thank you for your being present for the last almost 2 hours here. I'm really happy to meet all of you. And I'm happy to share my knowledge, but also I practice cultural humility. I learn from you. So I would love to visit India. I've not been there yet. It's one of my goals. I've been many places in the world, but not India. So I hope I can come there and meet you in person and spend more time with you one day in the future. I look forward to that day, and I'm happy to share time with you now online, and I'm really grateful for the time you gave me. And I encourage you to try and, practice these skills. Look online for information on motivational interviewing. It's widely available online on websites and books at very low cost or for free. So do more research yourself, and I'm happy to come back in the future and talk about this topic or other topics in our future meetings. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm very grateful.
Definitely.
Thank you.
So participants will be sharing the attendance form now. Those who are participating can fill the attendance and can leave the room. So once again, I thank Professor Ronald sir and our founder, chairman, Professor Patanumar Khan sir. So thank you for your valuable time and your presence, and that has given us immense encouragement and motivation on this day to organize more such. And we express our gratitude to all the team members and staff members, scholars, students of our college and alumni for their valuable contribution to this series of 40 years of celebrations. And we invite you all to be part of this 40-year celebrations and in upcoming programs. And let's all together, build for a better society together. Thank you, Professor, once again for being part of this. So
thank you, my friends.
Thank you, sir. So I will be sharing the attendance form now. We'll be there for 10 minutes only for, for you to fill up the attendance form. So we officially declare this international webinar closed. Thank you, sir.
Have a good evening. Thank you all. I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you.
I'm signing off.
Bye, Professor.
Bye-bye, my friends.
Thank you, Professor. You may...
I'm going to sign off now. Thank you.
Thank you. So we
Bye-bye.
are sharing. Bye, sir. Dear participants, we have shared the attendance form in the form of polls. We request everyone to fill the attendance form and mark your attendance so that we can generate certificates for all of you, those who have participated. And we have sent you an email also. After your registration, you have been receiving the forms which has been submitted, and we have also sent an email to everyone with the joining link. And we also have an upcoming session on 18th on social emotional learning. So we request everyone, you can join with the same link on 18th at the same time for another wonderful session from Professor Matt from USA. The attendance form has been shared in the form of polls, quizzes. We request everyone to fill the form. It is mandatory for the certificate. You can access the attendance form from the polls quizzes menu, or if you once you log in or join the session, you will be able to see the form automatically. You can fill the form, and based on the attendance, we'll be issuing the certificates. Certificates will be updated on the website in a week's time. So after a week's time, you can visit the website, which has been mentioned on the registration form. A copy of the registration form has been sent to your email ID. So you can check your email for the link, and you can download your websites from the website. You can download your e-certificates from the website after a week. So we have next international workshop on social emotional learning and emotional intelligence on 18th. At the same time, at 4:30, we request everyone to be part of it, and there will be a different registration form which will be circulated. It is available on the website. We request those who are interested to register yourself for the next upcoming international workshop.